worship. I'm very happy with Elspeth, and I hope all who are here will recognize me as Elspeth, and I'm quite happy with that. Welcome, and I'm really pleased to see such a great turnout for a discussion tonight, which I'm going to learn as well as all of you. There's lots of options out there in connecting farmers and makers and food makers with the general public, and in this community we have, as is shown in this room, many who are interested in food and how we deliver quality food to the public, and what are the opportunities for us to grow that in this community. So I look forward to the conversation. I look forward to your participation and hearing what you have to say as well. We're going to learn together, and then we're going to have conversations, and I think it'll be a great evening. So welcome, and thanks for turning up.
Thank you, Elspeth. Okay, my name is Chris Pelham. I am the partner with Third Sector Enhancement. We're a small consulting company out of St. Margaret's Bay, and we're the team lead for this project. And it's very much a team effort. And I'm going to introduce my team in a second, and then turn the evening over to them. I just want to say, though, is that the structure of the evening is for us to give you some of the things that we discovered as we went through the research progress for this, about what is a food hub, what is it not, how can it contribute, how may it contribute, what are the specific circumstances with respect to the District of Lunenburg, and how might it apply. And then most of you, I think all of you perhaps have a set of questions. We're going to ask you to ponder on those questions or other questions that you have, because most of the evening is not about us talking to you, but you talking to yourselves, and then you're talking to us. So if I can just introduce my team. First of all, Gary Morton. Gary has been in the agriculture, agri-food, food processing business for longer than he wishes to admit. He's from the Annapolis Valley and has been providing consulting to the farming community, agricultural processing community, and agri-food community for 35 years. Emily Solos. Emily is with a company called Lemonade Co. out of Mahone Bay, and Emily is going to provide some of the presentation tonight as well, keep documentation. And my other partner here is Marcia Fanning from Marcia Fanning Consulting, also from St. Margaret's Bay, and she's going to lead you into a discussion. We're going to try to extract from you everything you think you know and everything that you know that we can document. I do want to say is this is part of the process, is that we've done a bunch of work. We met with, and I want to acknowledge the contribution by the staff of District of Lunenburg. We met every 2 weeks for the last several months and talked about the evolution of this project as we were going forward. But when you come in here, you receive a one-sheet piece of paper. I don't have a copy of it here, and on that is a bit of an explanation of what we're going to do in very condensed form, and there's also a link to a survey that we ask you to complete. Some of you may already done it, and you'll get a little bit of a report on that as we go forward. If you've registered with your name and your email address as you came in, is that once we digest everything that we think you said, we will send it out to you and ask you, did we get it right? And I hope that you will say, yes, you did, no, you didn't, or some other reflections that you might have. So the evening, we go until 8:30, and perhaps beyond if that's necessary. And now I want to turn it over to Gary, who will go through the kind of research that we came up with over the last couple of months.
Thank you, Chris. Well, that's not going to work here. Folks, welcome, and I'm glad to be here this evening. I will share that 50 years this September is when I first went to agriculture college, so I have been around a little while. I've experienced a lot in agriculture. I've worked right across the country, and I've been pretty much all over the world looking at different agriculture projects. So for this project, we would like to get started here. Let me just find this. Okay, this is the problem. Okay, there we go. Chris already welcomed you here. So what we're here is to share with you information about hubs, food hubs, and then we want to listen to your thoughts, ideas, concerns, and opportunity to create a food hub for the district of Lunenburg. Firstly, and I do have a lot of wordy slides. I had to leave them on here because I knew we'd be sending them out later and it would just give context for people. So I'll go through them as quickly as possible. This feasibility study is a tool to introduce the food hub concept to the District of Lunenburg stakeholders and to bring them into the conversation as the project opportunities and considerations are further explored. It's not a business plan or about a community hub or a farmer's market. It's about examining ways to strengthen the food systems within Dole, support the Dole food security strategy goals to increase the consumption of local food to 20% by 2030, establish systems to enhance food production and the supply and distribution of food, and help food be available and affordable to all citizens. It's also about exploring increased access to local food, beverages, seafood, and value-added goods, stabilizing and enhancing district food production so it can grow and scale, improving the food system support infrastructures, creating opportunities to process and value-add food products, improving product supply and the distribution systems, cooperative marketing and expanding the market opportunity, and attracting more people and businesses and investment to the sectors. Specifically, food producers struggle with many different things, as you're all aware, like the weather, labor, input costs, resources, regulations, technology, markets, and the constantly changing and challenging global food business environment. The specific food industry issue we're exploring this evening and looking for your input on is, can a food hub be a viable, beneficial, economic, and social driver, and would it contribute to supporting the Dole District of Lunenburg Municipal Food Security Strategy? I just want to give a couple of definitions of food security, and these are just standard off the, if you Googled them on the internet, you'd probably see these. Recognized pillars of food security are available food, when there's sufficient nutritious food readily available to all. Accessibility, people have physical and economic access to sufficient food. Stability, the food system can consistently overcome economic and environmental challenges without failure. And utilization, efficiency in the food systems that limits waste. Now it's a little bit different. Food sovereignty is usually more the angle of taking control of the food system. And it's focused on people's right for food, sharing of food production knowledge and skills, works with nature to optimize the ecosystem, values for food producers, it values food producers and the sustainable livelihood, creates localized food systems, reducing the distance producers from producers to consumers, and food systems are controlled locally. I put this chart up here about food self-sufficiency in Nova Scotia, and I might have to step away a little bit to have a look at it because, let's just see, the screen's getting pretty small up here. That's after 50 years of going to college, or from college. If you look at the chart on the left, and that's areas in Nova Scotia where we are self-sufficient in food. So you can see in apples, blueberries, carrots. Carrots may not be anymore, but they were. Chicken, eggs, milk and milk products, onions, pumpkin squash, and seafood. And you can see that we have lots of self-sufficiency in those areas. The table on the right shows where we don't have enough self-sufficiency, and there's opportunity to grow. And I identified some there that with the stars that are probably good for this region: beef, cabbage, cranberries, grapes, lamb, pork, strawberries, turkey. But any of those on that table, there's opportunity to grow.
That was 5 years ago, though. Do you think the numbers have gone down?
It could. It's really hard to get any information other than this, but we could be less self-sufficient now than we were then. I'll just let you absorb that for a sec. So the question you might say is, why are we still importing food products in the categories where we are self-sufficient as a province? In areas like where there's more than enough self-sufficiency. I'd say that it's easier for producers to sell to other markets in retail and export products. So that's where large volumes tend to go. Limited producer access to consumers in our province. So the smaller firms have limited access to the consumer. General access to and the availability of local foods year-round, where a lot of local foods are very seasonal. Consumer reliance on convenience and the choice offered by retail grocers is what you're competing with. Infrastructure to process and value add our products. We're pretty historically known in this end of the world to export our products, not necessarily process them. Historic consumer levels of support for local foods, and local food is not necessarily a lower cost option for consumers. So those are some of the reasons why we're still importing food products in categories where we are self-sufficient, because in a lot of cases it's easier for those products to go somewhere else. The challenges: why is Nova Scotia not more self-sufficient in all commodities? You could ask that question. Limited production capacity in many of the food sectors. Could be land, in particular, and probably in your case in this region. Seasonality of the local food supply again. Economies of scale in a global marketplace, when you're a small producer trying to compete with products from somewhere else in the world. Infrastructures to support co-pack and value-add food and beverage products. So we don't have the processing capacity to value-add things. Supporting services such as cold storage, abattoirs, aggregation centers, distribution, and marketing support. Connections to larger sales opportunity for many people. Limited producer collaboration to supply markets, which is working together, co-ops, different groups are getting together to actually have a bigger impact. And local champions to lead marketing and distribution initiatives. So for defining local food and priorities, the way we've looked at it from our research here is local food tier 1 is local to District of Lunenburg. Tier 2 is the South Shore, basically, you're seeing that's the local district. Tier 3 would be Nova Scotia local. Tier 4 would be regional, Atlantic Canada. And Tier 5 is from anywhere else. So really the focus of in your area is on 1 and probably 2 and possibly even 3 within Nova Scotia. A complete food system, when you're looking at it, you've got local food and beverages being produced, you're trying to get them to the end consumer, there's supplies that have to come in at one end, then there's food processing capacity, food aggregation and distribution, and marketing to get it to the consumer. But there's also augmenting that supply chain, if it's not all available locally, with products from other regions. And linking with other food hubs could be a way to do that. So you can see in the end, it's going to the end consumer. Could be all kinds of different, it could be restaurants, it could be retail grocers, it could be schools, it could be institutions, other markets, agencies, export, and farmers markets are all some of the examples, and there's probably more than we could put on there. So what is a food hub? A food hub is a centrally located business or organization with a capacity to actively facilitate and manage the aggregation, storage, processing, packaging, marketing, sales, and distribution of locally produced food products in a manner to strengthen and improve the producer's ability, long definition here, to supply and satisfy the demand for local food in a variety of markets in a sustainable way. By streamlining the supply value chain, a food hub can ensure the efficient delivery of fresh, locally sourced foods to various outlets, including but not limited to healthcare facilities, schools, restaurants, retail stores, and or direct to the end consumer. So it's a matter of what you decide that's to be. There's a little short video here of that we'd like to share about what a food hub is. And if all goes well, this will play.
What is a food hub, and why is it an important part of a robust food system? A food hub is a food warehouse and distribution center that sources raw agricultural products and value-added foods from local producers and distributes them locally to restaurants, schools, hospitals, hotels, corporate commissaries, and more. A food hub fills the niche that larger food distributors can't or choose not to. Food hubs can go beyond just distribution. Sometimes they provide food processing, co-packing, cold, frozen, and/or dry storage. Small or large food distributors are aggregators. An easy way to describe an aggregator is to look at this crate. If a restaurant buyer needs 10 of these filled with zucchini this week, he can call local farms. If he can't find one farm with 10 crates, he keeps calling. He may have to make several calls and source from more than one farm just to fill that order. It often becomes difficult for larger distributors to work with locals for this reason. Traditional food distributors and local food hubs do the legwork for the buyer, and they usually deliver. Both models have a warehouse, trucks, and cold storage, but there are important differences between them. Traditional distributors will source from anywhere, usually from large suppliers, to meet the needs of their customers. Food hubs exist to improve the supply and distribution of local food. They source largely or exclusively from local farms, ranches, and value-added food companies. This helps the farmer to spend more time working on his farm and less time marketing his products. Food hubs are usually smaller businesses with smaller profits. They do not compete with the larger food distributors because they operate on much smaller profits. There are several different business models for food hubs, but the most common are profit, nonprofit, cooperative, public-private partnerships, or social entrepreneurs. Food hubs are community-centered businesses that are more focused on enhancing local food systems and sustaining local farming than creating profits with owners and investors. National studies and research conducted by Dr. Ruby Ward at Utah State University indicate that food hubs are often take several years to break even. Once they start to turn a profit, these profit margins are typically 1 to 5%. Most venture capitalists and private business investors are looking for opportunities with much higher returns on investment. The minimum startup cost for a food hub is approximately $1.5 million. Finding funding can be difficult. Seed money can come from many different sources, such as philanthropist foundations, community funds, grants, and government. By adding multiple hubs throughout the state, local food can be processed and distributed to rural locations and institutions, creating an active food system that is difficult for smaller farms to access through a traditional system. When a food hub is able to process food, either by freezing or dehydrating, it extends the shelf life of the food, making that food available year-round. Typically, when farmers harvest their produce, only 40% makes it to market. A good portion of what's left goes to waste because it's cosmetically undesirable. Processing allows a farmer to sell that otherwise wholesome produce to a food hub to be processed and sold. Now a farmer has a revenue stream that did not exist before. This creates less food waste and year-round community access to healthier food. We hope we've helped you to see how much a food hub could help to build not only your local food sales, but our state's economy.
Okay. We won't hold it that that's from the States actually right now, but we'll take their idea, if anything. Simplified, the food hub concept is basically you're collecting of food products. Your food is either processed, packaged, or stored and aggregated, and then it's marketed and distributed basically out to the customers, whoever those customers are. Now, I'll go through these quickly. Food hubs can be in different things. As you saw, they could operate in different ways: retail, nonprofit, producer, consumer-driven models. They aggregate and distribute products. It could be a food hub could focus on produce. It could focus on protein, consumer packaged goods, value adding, or a combination of some or all of those. Offer support and resources to producers with education, production, knowledge, equipment, sharing, storage, networking, labor, insurance. There's micro-lending in some places, helping with regulations and marketing. Be a central point for communities, for education, connections, and meetings. Reduce the need for equipment, facilities, delivery vehicles, and marketing. Increase access to local food supplies and stimulate scaling of food production. And offer new opportunities to sell into other markets. And help attract new and other business investment into the community to create a cluster. Different possible hub roles, and the first mile aggregation, that's basically collecting it from the farm. Temporary storage, the facilities to do that. Last mile distribution is often the hard one, getting it to the end consumer for delivery. Engaging in a variety of activities. Direct sales to the end consumer. It could be grocery sales, CSA boxes, buying groups. There's many different ways it could go. Processing for convenience, which could be light peeling, processing, washing, cropping, bagging, breaking things down. Meal prep through a commissary, commercial kitchen. Supply chain services such as meat cut and wrap, processing for preservation, shelf-stable products, fermentation to be frozen, preservation, and driven by desire to increase the producer's market access, and joint services where you're basically sharing things between members. The possibilities, and this chart is, if you can look on the left-hand side, you've got all the different commodities that are over there. On the right-hand side in the orange are the possible markets. What a food hub does is basically connect, aggregate, and distribute products, and all the things that we were talking about before. Common food hubs, there's the basic 2 trucks backed up to one another, and just like you see the UPS guys doing and changing product back and forth. It could be an intermediate one where you basically bring product in, just hold it for a very short period of time and move it on to market, or more advanced where there's more storage and processing and co-packing and those kind of activities. If the food hub is going to help lower the cost of food to the end consumer, you're basically trying to go as direct as possible to the end consumer. So that's where the most money is for a producer. The food hub is going to take a little bit away from that, but not nearly as much as if you go through the traditional chain of trying to go through brokers and processors and distribution and retailers to get to the consumer. The thing that I probably should point out is the Dole population is an aging population. In 2023, there was almost 52,000 residents. Ensuring food security for fixed income and low income earners is probably going to be important in the future because there's this bubble of people coming through and there's fewer people behind. 39% of the population was without employment income, which is basically retired. 31% of is income under 30,000 in the area. Feeding Dole. This is just an estimate I did for an example. If you took 52,000 residents and you gave them 3 meals a day, that's 156,000 meals a day. That's 56.9 million meals per year, just for Dole. If you look up, it's kind of, the average out there is 4 pounds of food and liquid per person per day, which is 207,000 pounds per day, or 75.7 million pounds of food per year, which is 38,000 tons per year, which if you took a 30-ton transport truck and I tried to go between the big trucks and the small trucks some way, that means there's 24 trucks per week and 3.4 trucks per day to feed Dole. So the opportunity to supply. Could local producers supply 5%? 1,900 tons of food per year, which is 63 truckloads per year or 1.2 trucks per week. At 10%, it would be 126 trucks per year, or 2.4 trucks per week. At 20%, the goal that I think the municipality had laid out as a stretch goal, could local producers supply 20%, which would be 7,600 tons of food per year, or 253 trucks per year, or 4.8 trucks per week. So there's a lot of food, and the opportunity is huge to fill or replace this market share, because someone's already supplying it, and for you folks, the opportunity is to get a share of that. If we quickly look at local food supply capacity, fish and seafood, for example, we're more than self-sufficient in seafood. Nova Scotia is the largest fish producer in the country, but not the largest fish consumer. 30% of fish consumed in Canada is not from Canada. Where does seafood go, we could ask? Could a food hub handle, aggregate, and market more fish products to the local market? Would it connect more with local people? Would it connect more people with local people with seafood? The agriculture capacity, if we look at the statistics here, this is from the 2021 Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture, Lunenburg County Agriculture Profile. Gross farm revenues were almost 35 million. 4.8% of the provincial farms were in the province, or were in the county. It's the 5th largest county in terms of agriculture revenues. Average farm size is 212 acres. 9% of all farms in Nova Scotia. The average revenue per farm is $155,688. 72% of farms made less than $50,000. So there's a lot of small farms here and some very big farms. The county is home to 26 egg and poultry farms, which is 17% of the provincial total. Cattle farming increased by 32% between the 2011 and the 2021 census. And the county accounts for 31% of the province's greenhouse, nursery, and floriculture farms, which includes Christmas trees in there, which bumps that number up a fair bit. If we look at agricultural profiles, and you probably can't see too much on here, but this just compares the 3 local counties, or down the South Shore, Queens, Shelburne, and Yarmouth with Lunenburg. And then Kings County, I did that I didn't want to show you because it's a much larger county in agriculture. It's probably the number 1 in the province. But you can see the gross farm receipts, 35 million versus 275 million. The number of farms is 242 in Lunenburg versus in Kings County, you've got 444, so it's almost double the farms. The average farm receipts, you can see the difference with 155,000 versus 650,000. And the interesting thing is when you look at the farms that are making under $100,000, they're almost the same number. They're pretty close in the number there. And the average farm acreage is almost the same. And what you've got is you've got some big vegetable farms and fruit farms over there. But when you start to look at things like hay and nursery and greenhouse, you have some competitive advantages. So I'm not doing this to make you feel bad in any way or anything. I'm just showing that this is the opportunity that's here and this is what exists. The opportunity when you come to this county, and this is the Canada Land Inventory Classification System, and it goes from Class 1 to Class 7 soils in Canada. In Nova Scotia, there are no Class 1 soils. Most of the Class 1 soils in Ontario are underneath the City of Toronto. In Quebec, they're under Montreal. You don't have any Class 2 soils here, or Class 4 soils, or very few, but you're mostly all Class 3 soils. And if you can look in this map, you can see that the dark areas are the Class 2 soils, the green areas are the Class 3, the lighter are the 4. You can see down here in your area, the majority of the soils are Class 3. And they're still good for growing vegetables, fruit for greenhouse production, livestock, all those things. So it's nothing bad there. One of the things that is a challenge here is the ag land is at risk. 12% is under urban development, which is higher than the provincial average. So you need to look at protecting your land. The growing degree days, which are kind of a measure of frost-free days, if you compare, sorry, I'm on one side only here. If you compare the numbers over here and you compare the numbers down in your area, and they're very similar. So it's not you don't have a bad growing degree day or really a climate. It's just the land is maybe more the issue here. So the opportunities to supply. You can all make great products. I know I've watched over the years in farming, everybody learns to make great products. I know you can do that. The challenge that you face, and especially in this province now, is the processing capacity, or the resources to process something. And the economy of scale. You've got to be able to compete, and that may mean you have to work together to get to that economy of scale to make things happen. For marketing and distribution, because you need access to those markets, to those customers. So again, I'm going to ask the question, can a food hub be a viable, beneficial, economic, and social driver for Dole, and would it contribute to supporting the municipal food security strategy? Some of what, I'm just going to go through these quickly. These are some of the things we've heard so far in the comments. I'll just read them off quick. As a small producer, we are looking for security in our markets. We want secure market facilities. We need access to customers more than one day a week. We have limited capacity to expand production, so we need help maximizing the available land. We need access to more infrastructure, storage, livestock processing, distribution. We cannot afford to receive any less for our products than we get now. Starting out, we need help getting into the market so we can have the opportunity to expand and grow our business. We're looking for more wholesale market connections, retail, restaurant, institutions. Food safety regulations are holding us back and making life difficult. I'm sure you. I was expecting to have some more giggles on that. A commercial kitchen with product cold storage that we can access when needed is important. We need co-packing options to process and value add our products. And are there enough farmers to support a food hub? And that is one of the big questions we're considering here. So basically, I'd just like to give you some examples of, as we wrap up what I'm saying here. One of the food hubs that the story probably most of you aren't that familiar with is the story of King's Produce in the Annapolis Valley in Canning. And what it started off in the early 80s is the group of farmers that were all very small farmers at that time were having trouble because they're shut out of the market. They couldn't get into the grocery stores, they couldn't get into the food services, and they realized they had to work together. Those people were Bruce Rand from Rand's Land Farm, Richard Melvin from Melvin Farms, Daryl Steele from Hustle Farms, Wayne Parker from Parker Farms, John Lohr from
Minister of what?
well, he's Minister of Finance, I think now. But his farm, his sons run the business there now, and I don't really know what it's called anymore. Glenn Elsley Farm, Andy Vermeulen Farms, and Andrew Bishop, Noggins Corner. So what you will notice is they got together, and what they did is they commonly marketed their product together. They hired one person to deal with the grocery stores. They collectively put their volume together, and as they grew, they built a warehouse, they built cold storage, they introduced liquid icing into cooling, they did vacuum cooling, they got controlled atmosphere storage, and specialty equipment to make some of these things happen. So all I'm trying to point out is that everybody starts small. And these guys, by working together over a period of time, they've grown to be the largest vegetable producers in Nova Scotia and probably even in Atlantic Canada to a large degree. They basically, in the early 2000s, what happened was they outgrew the model. So they got big and everybody wanted to do their own thing, and they sold the name off. Andrew Bishop took the name, and he still runs that as King's Produce, or Kings of Nova Scotia now. So the opportunity is to grow something a little bit bigger. Here's one, it's the food hub in Cape Breton. And the interesting thing here is they have a distribution agreement with Ace Distribution up there. And ACE goes around to everywhere in Cape Breton every day of the week, so product can move and they can bring products together. They have a commercial kitchen now, a lot of shiny stuff up there, so that they can make products. And I left the Christmas trees in here because there's no reason a food hub couldn't market and distribute Christmas trees as well. The Station Food Hub in Windsor is a processing, co-packing, business incubation food hub. And what they basically do is they take second products and what they process them, turn them into mashed potatoes, chopped up carrots, different kinds of programs that they have, and they go off to hospitals and institutions. Wolfville Farmers Market has the To-Go program, and it acts as a hub. It organizes things, it takes people to the market, and it gets, basically you've got 65 farmers and vendors now, and 1,800 local products, and they go out every week to customers. Western Newfoundland Food Hub. This is one that's kind of interesting. It's on the west coast over near Corner Brook, and brainchild of 3 young guys. And what they do is they have a website. Farmers put their product on the website, they set the price, they take a percentage of that price when they sell it. But the farmers put their product up on Thursday, Friday to Monday, the customers can order it. On Tuesday, they go around and pick it up from all the farms. Overnight on Wednesday, they basically pull the orders and aggregate the orders together. And then Thursday, they deliver to drop-off points. Then they start over again the next week. Working together gets it there. The Really Local Harvest Co-op in Dieppe, if you've ever been to the Dieppe Farmers Market, it started years ago as a group of very small farmers wanting to get bigger, and they got together, they started marketing their product together. Then they actually bought that market building in Dieppe. It was an old Sobeys store, and they've run it for 20 years since I've been working with them, and it's just helped smaller guys get into markets that they couldn't otherwise. Here's just some examples of, this is an Acorn food hub in Vermont, and again, it's just, they're doing cross-docking, they're freight dropping, they're CSA hosting, increasing the access to markets for producers. So basically, you know, you can join this group and work with them to get their products to the market. The Gorge Farmer Collective, again, same kind of thing. People, the whole idea is to pull products together and get them to customers in an efficient way that's good for the farm. Here's an interesting one, and I used a little quote at the top. Men who say it cannot be done should not interrupt the women doing it. These two ladies, Jennifer Curtis and Tina Privet-Levy, they're in North Carolina, but what they realized was that there was nobody helping the small farmer get their meat to the market. So they took all the headaches out of it. She basically says that in our food system, everyone does what they're good at. The farmer can grow his meat. They organize the processing, they organize the marketing, and they have the relationship with the chefs that they get the products going to where it needs to go. This is a little bit bigger scale, but I thought it would be interesting to just kind of share too. Lufa Rooftop Farms in Montreal. They started in 2011 with a 3,100 square foot greenhouse on the top of a building. They've moved very rapidly up in the last decade to on top of, you can see the Marsh Central on top of Walmart there. They now have 500,000 square feet of fresh vegetables being produced in Montreal. They serve and feed 2% of the families in Montreal. They've raised money, they've got investors, and they've been able to take things through the different programs. So I guess all I'm saying here is it's possible if you get together. It doesn't have to be this scale, But if you've got a dream and an idea, then you can find people to help you. And here's the one I really think is interesting. I've followed these people since the very beginning. I had some connection with their consultant, and it's Our Cow in Australia. And the two, Bianca and Dave McGivern, in I think it was 2017 or 18, they bought a farm, and it was the same year that they had big droughts, they had fires, they had total disaster, and they had to figure out a way to get their product to market. So they started this online system of marketing their meat. They built up relationships with other farms. It's all grass-fed beef, and is sold in boxes that people order across Australia. When COVID hit, they had the system set up in place. If you listen to the video that's on here, every second they were getting an order when COVID hit. They now, let me just see. Their goal when they started was to have 300 members buying their product and maybe have another 20 farms supporting them. In 2025, they now have thousands of members and over 100 farms across the country supplying the demand. So all I wanted to show here is there's possibilities. You know, no matter what you think about the size that you are or wherever now, it's working together. You can be into different markets. So just to finally wrap up, the Food Hub opportunity is, you know, you're going to start off with local food, and whether you have to supplement it with food from the other regions or the other parts of Nova Scotia to fill your orders to make it viable. But over time, you just replace those people and as your industry grows. But you need the opportunity for you to grow, and you need somewhere for your product to go. And that's what a Food Hub could do for you. Chris? Sorry it took longer probably than I should have.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Before we get into engaging you, and before we get into the questions you may have, I'm going to ask Emily just to give you, I mentioned that there's a survey open online. It doesn't take you very long to do. Some of you may have already done it. There were about 50 people went in and all didn't complete it, but what we're going to give you now is just a preliminary indication of what your fellow residents said on that survey about the various questions we posed.
Thank you, Chris. So as he mentioned, these are the initial survey results. We had 49 total responses. 32 of those were full responses, which meant that people answered all the questions. 17 of those were incomplete. So this information, who's responded. You'll see the age is quite varied. Roles, lots of consumers, followed by farmers and growers, and then food vendors and food processors as well. The top 5 food products that people said they would like more access to. Number 1 would be produce, so fruit and vegetables. Number 2, meat and poultry. Fermented foods was number 3, so things like kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut, and yogurt. Number 4 was organic and no spray foods, and then followed by eggs at number 5. Accessing nutritious foods, so 21% of respondents said they lacked access to enough nutritious food in the last 12 months. 76.5% of respondents listed the biggest barrier to accessing food is the high cost of food. And these are some direct quotes from the survey. It's getting more and more expensive to provide the most nutritious and sustainable foods to our family. We can access nutritious food, but because everything is becoming more and more expensive, we're purchasing less variety and less nutritious food to prioritize what we can afford. We would also love to support local growers, fishers, and farmers because we would like to be less reliant on products from the US and abroad. We know that Nova Scotia has a low food security score, and that makes us anxious. So assessing the importance, we looked at increased food security, increased food sovereignty, and growth in local food production. So 68% of the respondents said that food security is essential. 18% said that food security is very important. 50% said that food sovereignty is essential. 36% that it was very important. And 44% said that growth in local food production is essential. 32% said that was very important. So defining local food and food hub feasibility, most respondents defined local food as food coming from within Nova Scotia, as Gary kind of broke down those different layers of what local means to different people. The food hub structure, so 44% of people said it should be nonprofit, 14% said it should be for-profit, 20.5% said other or nothing at all, and 6% said that it should be government run. And then this graph here depicts the level of support from the District of Lunenburg, ranging from not at all to everything. Food hub preference, so again bringing up these 3 different levels from basic to intermediate to advanced. You'll see that most of the respondents so far have preferred the advanced model here. And here are some more comments. I like the education aspect of the advanced version. This is a big issue right now. If you can't start with the advanced, I'd start with the intermediate first, and then with the goal to move towards advanced. It can be hard for small-scale food producers to jump through the hoops of rules and regulations for producing and selling food. The food hub should streamline production and sales of locally made food products. I think it would make sense to start with a basic model first and grow the services provided pending the success of the food program. 2 people said no food hub. For-profit business would properly pay farmers and create jobs. This will increase wealth and security in our own community. I'd like to see the local farms open seasonal jobs to our local community. A for-profit business model defeats the purpose of helping food security issues, since the #1 concern for many families is the high cost of food. I choose the nonprofit option with the hopes that buying in bulk from local farmers will create enough profit to make it workable for them. We need locally produced, affordable food more than ever. A social enterprise structure could enable the food hub to apply business principles while retaining a nonprofit focus that keeps food affordable. And I'll just go over these quickly. We'll be sending this presentation out to everyone whose email we have. To keep food close to hand, barriers must be kept low and open for local farmers and producers. It would also be great to have a provincially inspected butcher shop so that producers don't have to travel literally hours to get butchering done. More focus for local stores to carry local food, or create a hub market that only supplies local meats, dairy, produce, etc. Small farms need customer interactions as a way of promoting sales. The food hub is going to compete with many local retail outlets and markets. I think there is a need for strong municipal involvement, in kind or as funding. The best model, in my view, would involve all 5 municipalities collaborating in some way, via planning, organizational support, or funding. So now we're going to move over to Marcia's section.
Just before you do that, can I ask who in the room has completed that survey? 2 or 3. So I'll challenge you to go up once you leave, take a look at that survey, change those dynamics for us, and take it. It'll take you 10 minutes at most, right? How long did it take you to do it?
10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, right. So if you go in and do that, that will add to the kind of information base that we haven't going to get tonight.
Follow the QR code.
So on there is the link to the website, and also a QR code to get there. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Marcia, and then now the floor is yours, and she's going to try to marshal your thoughts so that we can come away with some consolidated thoughts.
Oh, I never heard that one before, Marshall. I've heard Marcia. No, I didn't break my nose throwing a football. What we're gonna do now is, at your tables, when you first came in, you would have been given a questionnaire. So what we're looking to do now is we'll do this in a couple of different phases. So first, we want you to independently on your own kind of look at those questions and write down your thoughts and your answers, your perspectives. And then what I'll end up doing, I'll give you about 5 minutes for that. And then what we'll do is we'll get you to work in groups at your tables. So the folks that are in chairs, you can kind of turn and talk to each other. Ladies over here, that there's just 2 of you, if maybe you want to join another table. And what we'll do is we'll end up getting each table then to kind of share main points